Hey everyone, welcome back to your practice. Today's session will be caring for our hips, a shorter session where we'll work with both strengthening and opening our hips and looking at a variety of squats at the end of the session. I initially made this class for a friend of mine who is a rock climber who is working on increasing range and strength in heel hooks and high steps, but this class could really be for anyone who's on a journey of creating more space and more stability in their foundation, and that will inevitably translate into freedom in our low back and upper bodies. So for this session, you might want a couple of blocks. If a pistol squat, or if you know what that is challenging for you, or a squat is challenging for you, grab a couple of blocks, and we'll start with a hamstring stretch. So if you prefer to have a strap to wrap around your foot in a hamstring stretch, lying down, grab that as well. So let's begin lying down on our mat. And you might start your session with awareness of contact with your body on the ground. How does it feel to lie down? Is it welcome? You can take your shoulder blades down your back, and let's draw our right knee in towards our chest. And as usual in our yoga practices, you're welcome to link a slower, smoother breath pattern into your movements. So you might drop into that now. Awareness of your breath and then slowing it down. You can stretch out your left leg here out of your pelvis and either interlock your hands behind the back of your right hamstring, bringing your right leg up towards a hamstring stretch. Or you can grab a hold of your strap or whatever you've got for that. Hook that around the arch of your foot and draw your leg in. So many of us will have a bent leg here, maybe a shaky leg. Go with that level of intensity for you that feels like you can keep your breath slow and smooth. Also, if you're rounding your low back into the floor here, can you tip your pelvis forwards a little so that you're really pressing the center of the back of your pelvis down, and you might even have a little concavity in your low back, like a little ant could crawl under your back, so you have a bit more of a neutral spine. So let's take a few more breaths here wherever you're at. You could also play with pointing both of your toes, giving a bit of a stretch sensation to the front of your shins. Dropping your shoulders. And then you can take either your strap in your right hand or your hand around the outside of your right leg and let that leg fall out to the side. And as you let it fall out to the side, try to keep your left hip grounded, your left buttock on the ground as you open to the side, stretching your inner leg there just to wherever it feels good. You can maintain that slow, steady breath. Let's take that leg all the way into center. Let's switch sides. So we take our left hand, or strap in the left hand to the outside of your right leg and take it across your body. You might bend your knee there if you like, and then let your knee fall towards the floor, rolling into a twist. Some of you might keep your leg straight and take your leg towards the floor. Wherever you get there, try to take your top right hip down away from your right shoulder. Big IT band stretch, big TFL stretch here on your outer hip. And then all the way back up to center and release that leg to the ground. Take a moment to feel your weight there. Maybe a difference in the two sides is noticed. And then take your left knee in towards your chest, squeeze it in. Opportunity to find that slightly slower breath. You can outstretch your right leg, and you can slowly start to straighten out your left leg. So you can use your hands somewhere on that leg. You can use your strap, of course, and find that just right spot for you. Your knee might be a little bent, your leg might be a little shaky there. Go to the place where you can be with it and take a few breaths. Your nervous system will likely get used to these stretches if you do them often. So maybe 3 times a week would be a good amount to dive into this practice. All right, so remember that little space in your low back. If you can, press your pelvis to the ground, and then either take your strap in your left hand or take your hand to your left foot and open it out to the side with your right hip still on the ground, keeping your right hip grounded there. You can play with pointing your toes, stretching the inner line of your left leg there. And then the leg comes all the way back to center. Strap in the right hand to take it across your body, or use your right hand to the outside of your left shin or foot. You can bend that leg if it's a lot. Slow, smooth breathing, and take that top left hip away from your face, which will likely increase the stretch in your outer hip. Peeling that left side open. Let the leg come all the way back up and feet to the ground. All right, one more stretch here. Right ankle on top of your left knee. You can curl up here and take your left knee towards you. Hold on behind your hamstring or on top of your shin there and draw this figure 4 unit in towards you. And if you lean a little to your left sit bone, your right hip, you'll likely feel it a little more in your right hip. So you can lean your body a little to the left. So you're weighted on the left. Swing yourself back to center there and switch sides. So left ankle on top of right knee. You can curl up, grab a hold behind your right hamstring. Bring your right knee in towards your right armpit and lean your body a little to the right. So to the right side of your spine, you're weighted there. See if you can relax your neck and keep that slow, smooth breath pattern. And release that out. And we'll rock and roll up to a seat and turn sideways on our mat. So we take our feet out like we're creating a V from our pelvis to our feet. You can take your hands behind you here and then let your knees fall to the left into the center. Both sit bones will ground, and let your knees fall to the left. So your left sit bone will come up there. When you come into the center, both sit bones will ground. And then as you go to the left, your right sit bone will likely come off. It might stay down. So go side to side there. And then we're gonna land with our knees to the left. Now if this is a lot for you, it doesn't feel safe in your right hip, you can sit up on a block on your sit bones or bring some height with some blankets so that it feels a little better in your right hip. If you don't internally rotate your right hip a lot, there might be a lot of sensation there. Just it's okay if it's feeling safe for you. So take a couple breaths there, staying upright, and if you can take your hands off of the ground and try to stay upright in your spine and cross your arms over your chest. So let's work with some strength here. We're going to shift a little forwards and then try to lighten your right ankle off of the floor without leaning too far to the left. So try to stay as upright as you can and lighten your right ankle off of the floor or lift it off of the floor. So I'm trying to do this more from the strength of my outer hip than like a big side body bend to make that happen. I'm using my side body a bit more. So try to make that really happen with the strength of your outer hip. So you might get a lot of movement and you might not get so much. You can lighten. Maybe you lean back here, or maybe you stay more upright without using your arms. Okay, so we'll let that go. And now get heavy through your right sit bone and peel open your right knee. And imagine pressing both of your knees behind you. So again, you can do this with your hands back, giving yourself a bit more space in your hips, or a bit more challenging to not use your hands. So let's do that a couple times. Lifting up, really peeling the knees apart from each other, and down. 3, 2, and 1. Okay, let's let that come down, and then let your left knee come up and drop it down. Left knee come up. Again, you can lean back, right? Create a little more space. 3, 2, and 1. Let's take our belly button over the center of our left shin. So start to come forwards. You can take your hands out in front, or you can take your elbows to the ground and lean in over that shin. Maybe you feel this like a big outer hip stretch on your left hip. If you want, you can stretch your right leg out towards straight too, giving a bit of space in your hip flexor. And you might keep the right toes pointed out and away, or you could turn your knee to the floor of that back foot. It'll be a bit of a bigger stretch, and roll the kneecap to the floor so you're in a pigeon form. All right, let's come on out of that. Come back to where you started with your right leg internally rotated, and shift your knees to the right. There you go. So you can choose to bring yourself up on height there if you need to. Your left hip might be a little bit off, that's okay. For these, either lean back or don't use your hands for a little more challenge. So we're gonna try to use that outer left hip here and lighten our left ankle off of the ground, trying to keep it as much in the hip as possible instead of a big curling action to make that happen. You might feel it a little in your side, but just try to minimize that and keep it in your hip. So let's go for 5, 4. It's okay if you lean a little right. Again, try to minimize that. 2, and 1. Okay, let's get heavy through our left hip there and start to open our left knee out and close it down to the ground. Open, try to press your outer knees away from each other and close. Let's go for 3. Push them apart. 2, and 1. And then let that left knee come down and bring the right knee in and down, using the inner right leg to bring the knee in. I also feel this in my left hip. So as I come up, I feel more of a stretch in my outer left hip. 1, and then we're gonna take our belly button, our sternum, over the center of our right shin. So lean forwards, or your elbows can come to the ground. You can also play with lifting your foot more up if you're not feeling enough of a stretch. You might feel more if you lift your foot a little higher up towards the back of your mat. And you can also try stretching that left leg out, getting a bit of space in your left hip flexor, turning your belly button to the floor. Some of you might tuck your back set of toes. It's a little more challenging. And take your center of your kneecap down and then point your toe behind you so you're in a pigeon. Let's come out of that. So we'll bring our left knee in, come up and into the center, and then turn towards the front of your mat. And you can use your hands or not to bring you into a squat. So maybe you try that without using your hands, or you use your hands, crack, crack, and come into a squat. So some of you might be in a toe squat with your hands on the floor, wherever you get. If you had blocks, you could settle your heels onto blocks if your heels are not on something. You could also roll up your mat and put your heels on a little bit more height of your mat. So your knees can point out a little bit here, your toes can point out a little bit, and you can even take your elbows and place them on your inner knees and press your elbows and knees together. Try to be as upright as you can in your spine. So if you're arching your spine a lot, try to let your tailbone sink and get long through your back. So we're gonna stand up and come back down 5 times here. So drive through your feet, try to keep your spine neutral, not arching, not rounding too much, so more upright, and stand up. So we're gonna come all the way back down. Some of you might need to come up on your toe pads, that's okay. So come all the way back down. Your hands can do whatever you want. Sink into that squat and try to be as upright as possible, and then drive yourself all the way back up. Let's go for 3 more. So lowering down, upright spine, stand up. 1, lowering down. Sometimes I get cracky knees in this one, so I try to go to that place where my knees are pretty quiet. 1 more there. You can try to strengthen underneath your knees and be more upright. And then come on up, and let's go right back down into our squat now. Maybe a toe squat. Come on down into that. All right, so use your hands or not to squat or sit back down onto your hips and lower back down onto your back. And now we'll work with a little bit of hamstring strength, so that action of pulling our heel in towards our sit bone through the strength of the posterior part of our leg. So keeping your feet underneath your knees, you can lift your hips up so that you're in a low bridge. So rather than a big rounded high hip bridge, your low ribs stay close to the floor at the back, and you're kind of making a long line from your knees to your shoulders. And then from here, start to pull. So feel your heels digging into the ground, and then try to kind of pull isometrically. So you're not actually moving your leg, but you're gonna pull your heel and your sit bone towards each other. Or pull your heels towards your face, and also imagine your sit bones moving towards the backs of your knees, right? So you can put your hands there and just notice if your glutes and your upper hamstrings are turned on. Are they working? This might make your knees go apart, so try to keep your knees in line with your hip. So a little squeeze there through your inner knees. Okay, so you might feel some of that work here. Now if you want to intensify this a little bit, drag your sit bones towards the backs of your knees and then release. So push your heels into the floor so that you kind of move towards the back of your mat with your head, and then pull your knees forwards. Pull your sit bones towards the backs of your knees. And you're actually going to move forwards a bit there with your pelvis. Push, pull, push, pull. Let's go for 10, 9, 8, and I'm really pulling my sit bones towards the backs of my knees. 5, 4, I really feel this in my upper hamstring. 2, and 1. Hold that there for a moment, and then I'm gonna come up onto my tippy toes, lift my pelvis a little higher, and roll down. Hips to the floor, take your knees in, wobble a little side to side. All right, let's work that same action, but work it a little bit more through our outer hamstring and outer line of our leg. So if you have a block, you can actually squeeze your block in between your feet like that, or you can squeeze your feet together. I'm gonna use the block. So I'm squeezing the block on the ground, or you have to squeeze your feet together and your knees just go as wide as they go. And then we're gonna lift up into that long bridge. So low ribs stay on the ground. You might even tuck your pelvis into a posterior tuck a little here, so that you're not overusing your back muscles in an arch, right? Super long through your low back. And now I'm going to start to dig my heels into each other, or dig them into the block, and pull my sit bones towards my heels, or towards the front of my mat. Pull, pull, pull. So I should feel my outer glutes there and my upper hamstrings really working, especially kind of to the outer part of the hamstring. Feel that. Now you can stay there, come out of it when you need to. Keep pressurizing your heels, and then you can pull forwards and push away. Pull and push. Pull and push. And I'm really trying to keep my back muscles relaxed here and really work my glutes and hamstrings. Pull and relax. Let's go for 10, 9, 8, 7. Really drive from your heels. 6. Press heels together and pull. 4, 3, 2, and 1. I'm gonna lift my hips a little higher there. Get that stretch and then roll on down. Knees in and wobble a little side to side. Nice, so you can use your hands or not to bring you back up into that squat. And then use your hands behind you or not. You can let your hips come to the floor, let your feet come forwards, and roll onto your back. Take your knees in towards your chest. Take a breath there. And then we're gonna roll all the way up. Cross your legs in front, take your hands down, step back to down dog, and we'll work with a little bit of ankle mobility to help our squat. So right leg up and back behind you, and then right leg right under beside your right wrist. Take your left knee down and inch your left knee forwards so that your right knee is coming over your ankle here. It's really coming over your ankle, and I'm gonna actually press my right forearm into my right knee and lean my body weight there over my right knee, and then try to press my right ankle to the floor. So you can see there's a big stretch through the back of my Achilles. If you're feeling there's a lot of tension at the front of your ankle, can you see if you can soften that tension at the front of your ankle and drive your heel down. Now I'm using my hand to press my knee forwards. Take a breath there. Now if it feels okay for you and your knee feels okay, you can kind of roll forwards so that you're on your knee with your toe tucked. Take a breath there. And then roll on back, and let's step back into downward dog and pedal out through our feet. Let's try that on the other side. So left leg high, and bring it right behind your left wrist there. Right knee down, scooch forwards so that you are getting your knee over the line of your ankle. And you can use your forearm, your body, your hand to press your knee forwards. And if you're feeling a lot of tension in the front of your ankle, try to soften that. You can even put your fingers there. See if you can soften that as you press your heel down and press your knee forwards. Get into that. Now if you like, you can roll over your tucked toes, tap your knee to the ground, and then roll on back. Hands to the floor, step back to downward facing dog. Yeah, so step or hop forwards, and here you might take your blocks on either side of your mat. What we're gonna do is, you can watch this first, we're gonna roll back and then roll forwards, and you might use your blocks for this. Stand on your right foot in a half squat and come into a pistol squat with your left leg forward so your hips come off the floor, and then we'll switch. So we'll roll back and get your left foot to press and come up. So you could use blocks for that, or you could roll back, right foot, and find a little pistol squat there with your hands counterbalancing you, and then roll back and come up onto your left foot. And just notice if your hips really want to sway side to side, so you can join me in rolling through one leg at a time. And I'm just going to show you with blocks there. So if your hips really want to shift side to side, really try to keep your core strong, your abdomen strong, and your hips in the center. It's a little harder on one leg than the other for me. So I'll show you with some foam blocks how you could do that with your blocks, just to propel you forwards a little if you're feeling your ankle is restricting you, or maybe your hamstring. You might come a little higher, right? Or even kind of come up onto your toe to try it out. So wherever you are, let's go for 5, 4, 3, 2, One. Nice back line opener here too. Okay, we're going right into our squat again. So roll yourself through to your squat and then stand up. Nice. Okay, so let's play with, I'm gonna show you this way. I'm gonna have my blocks on their high level if I need them. And you can take your right leg in a figure 4 now. Now notice if your hips want to go to the side, try to keep them going straight back and start to sink into like a kind of a squat. Now if you need your blocks, you can use them to try to sink a little lower here and then come all the way up, right? Now we're going to take our right leg and swing it back behind. You can keep your leg bent. Now you can use your blocks as well to hover there in a bit of a curtsy, kind of a curtsy squat, or you can straighten your right leg out. Come a little lower, come all the way up, suck your hips to the midline, come into that figure 4 squat, maybe use your blocks, and come all the way up. Let's try it on the left side. So blocks are ready for you. Figure 4, we're gonna sink into that. You can come up onto your toes a little. Use your blocks to support that sink. Your right heel might come off a little bit. Come on up. Leg goes behind you. So your right hip's gonna come to the right here. Just keep compacting it in with the muscles of your outer hip. So your knee might come closer to the floor. You might stretch that left leg out. Let it be messy. Come all the way up. Figure 4. Sink one more time into that figure 4 and come all the way up and release. All right, let's go one more time with right leg, and I'm just going to show you without the use of the blocks. So we'll come into that right foot on top, squat down, stand up, right leg behind, squat down, stand up, right leg on top, squat down, stand up. So good. Right foot down, left leg on top, squat down. So I just noticed, like, I took a climbing fall actually once and ripped the ligaments in my right ankle, and so it's so much harder for me on this one side. So just be gentle with yourself if you're working with injuries. Come on up. Left leg on top, that figure 4 squat. And come on up. Awesome. Okay, so standing hip circles. Get into your hip flexors as you circle your hips forwards, hula hoop the other direction. All right, so let's try a pistol squat. So here we'll take our blocks, they're just ready for us. And you can take your right leg out in front and then start to sink down. Strong glutes. You might use your blocks. You might come up onto your left tiptoes, ground your heel, drive up with a long spine, and release. Let's switch sides. Left leg up. Start to lower down. Maybe you pop up onto your left toes, sink down, use the blocks to help you try to keep your spine neutral as you come up. Let's try it without the blocks. So right leg forwards and sink down. Use your hands to counterbalance you there and drive up with a long spine. Not easy. Left leg up. You can use your blocks if you need to. Sink down and long spine. Drive up. Really good. Release. You can always pause the video and try that again, or hula hoop through your hips, opening the front of your hips there. Switch directions. All right, so let's try a shrimp squat variation. And you might want to put a block, especially if you have a foam block behind you, a little bit behind, like maybe half a foot behind your left foot here. And then we'll take grab a hold of your right ankle, take it out to the side, pull it in, knees magnetized towards each other, strong abdomen, and use your left arm forwards as a counterbalance. So we're gonna lower down, keep some strength in your glute, shifting back. So even weight in your left toes and left heel. Tap your block and come back up. So you can for sure try that without the block. And you can also try it with both hands holding your foot. It's a little more challenging. So left leg holding your left ankle. First, get that quad stretch, hip flexor stretch, stand tall. Knees magnetized to center, right arm out. And tap and drive yourself back up. Release that foot. So you can always try it without the block, and try not to do too much curling or arching of your spine. So really work with compacting your hips to the center, even weight in your toes and your heel. Tap and drive back up. We'll try the other one. You might fall out of it, whatever. Give it a good try. Tap and drive back up. Release that out. Give your hips a little circle. Take your hands at your low back, thumbs in, hands wrap around. Send your hips a bit forwards and then lift your low back out of your pelvis. Press your hands into your hips and squeeze your elbows together and get a really long spine here. Let your shoulder blades push your chest up towards the ceiling. If your neck feels okay, look up. A few long, smooth breaths. This is strengthening for your neck as well. Try not to let your head just collapse back. So a little bit of strength in the back of your neck. Push into your hands, come up to a standing position. Take your hands behind you, interlock your fingers if you can. Bend your knees and forward fold over your legs. Let your hands fall behind you. If your collarbones are curling towards your belly button and you're rounding your upper back, try lifting your collarbones towards the floor or lengthening them towards the floor, and then widening your shoulders so your chest bones have all that space to spread with your breath. Notice the weight of your head and the contact of your feet here to the ground. Can let your hands go and step back to a downward facing dog. Really nice. Come on down to your knees, sit on your heels, and maybe lie down for a little final relaxation, or you might sit in comfortable cross-legged or like this, sitting on your heels. Close your eyes and notice the residue of all that movement. How do you feel? Taking that mindful moment to tune in. Okay, thank you so much for participating in this session. I hope it's useful for you, and maybe you weave it into your week a little bit and see what happens with consistent practice. Thanks again.